Welcome to the NYREJ Podcast. I'm your host, Rick Kaplan. My guest today is Jon Crandall with JC Grounds Management. Good morning, Jon.
Good morning, Rick.
So, Jon, tell me a little bit about your journey to where you got today. You're an author as well now, so tell me a little bit about what's going on.
Yeah, that's a title I never expected. Geez, it's a long story, but I'll share briefly. I started our business, JC Grounds, back when I was in high school at 16 years old. A little bit out of necessity. I was on my own really young, and started the company with about $500 in the bank, and grew it to where it is today. So my brother and I had a situation that put us in place. We had to, pay for a mortgage and our expenses and everything else, and the company helped do a little bit of that, and my brother had gone to work and helped do a little bit of that as well. Went to college, finished that, and when I got out of school, I decided I just wanted to continue on with the landscape snow company. And over time, it developed into commercial only and more snow than landscape. And today, we're operating throughout Massachusetts. We run around 1,000 employees per snowstorm. And most importantly, besides my family and my wife and my kids, I love what I do every day. Just love the people I work with and the customers and what we do. So it's been a lot of fun.
Well, before we go on any further, I have to ask you a question about your background.
Sure.
And I'm not sure where you're located, but is that snow on the roofs behind you?
We actually generate that snow, so that's no, just kidding. No, in the background there, we're in the main office is in Danvers, Mass, in the North Shore. What you're probably seeing is we have some salt sheds behind me, and those sheds have white domes on them, so it's probably tough to see, but it's just the color of the material on the dome.
Okay. So let's move on to your book. Tell me a little
Sure.
bit about what the book is about.
So back about 3 or 4 years ago, I had this idea of writing a book. I mean, we're in a business where a lot of people don't know what we do. You know that you come in the morning and the snow's plowed and the ice hopefully is mitigated. But most of it happens overnight, and there's a lot of things that happen in this business overnight that it's very interesting. It's an emergency service business. If you're doing it doing it well, there's a lot of logistics that come into play. I kind of liken it to almost like a fire department, but for the winter. And probably 3 or 4 years ago, I had this idea of, I really want to put this into, put some of these stories down into place. And then it evolved into, what are some of the interesting things about this business that people just don't know? And more so, through the years, I've talked to the property managers and property owners at the end of each season, asking them a couple of questions. Just basically, would you refer us to a friend, and why did you answer the way you did? And we would modify our services to those questions, to the answers we received. And I said, you have all this at least I did. I had all this head trash of like, who am I to write a book on this and everything else? But I finally just said, I'm going to do it. I ripped the Band-Aid off, so to speak. And we started putting this together a couple of years ago, and it finally got printed last week. So sorry for the long explanation, but that's what got us there.
And it's selling on Amazon and a few other places.
Right now, it's just Amazon. We have the link on our website as well. But yeah, that's it. It just, for me, was the easiest platform to get it out there.
So why is it so important that property owners know what's in this book?
So I think our business, and again, this could be the story I'm telling myself, but I think our business, for the most part, if you didn't really understand, or you haven't been in property management for a while, because people that have been in for a while, I think, do see value in some, a decent amount of value in what we do. But if you haven't been in it in a while, you might wonder what's the difference. I come into work and the lot's plowed and somebody threw down sand to salt. Um, if you've been in it for a long time, you probably have seen some of the things that have happened if it's not done well. And over the years, like I think I consider it an honor for who has entrusted us with their property. We take care of a lot of local hospitals and major logistics centers and whatnot. And one of the things I've had conversations with some of the C-level teams of these places, and the hospitals, for instance, will say to me, what if it was and this really makes you think, what if it was your mother, father, sister, brother, child, grandfather that was coming in the ambulance and they couldn't get up the hill in seconds count, and I had somebody say this to me at one of the hospitals, and I already have taken this business incredibly serious, but when they said that, it really made it was real, because you think of it, you go, yeah, seconds counted, what is it that we have to do so it's not, we've done everything in our power to make it as efficient as we can for those people. So that's one thing. I'm being long-winded already. But I've been fortunate enough over the years to purchase some industrial property for my own business, and now I'm kind of on both sides. So that's what I put into the book, a lot of that.
So I never knew anything about snow removal, that after it snows, I know a guy comes around, he plows it up and throws down the salt. Also, I never knew there was an association for snow and ice removal, uh,
Right.
or management, which is called SIMA. Uh,
SIMA, yeah, the Snow and Ice Management Association.
and
It's funny because
you were the president of it.
I was the chair, yeah, the chairman for a little bit. I
Uh,
was on the board for about 7 years, and it started just I was going to the events forever, traveling around with the organization, seeing trying to learn best practice and seeing what new equipment was out there. They always had a trade show. Um, and I had just come over to the CEO at one point, and I said, how do I get involved a little bit more? And I started writing some articles in their magazine, and then started some board work. And my first day of the board, I probably should have asked sooner, but I said, "How long is the term?" And they said, "Usually it's 6 to 7 years." And I thought they were kidding, but that was the reality. So, but it was fun. It was really good.
I saw a video of a snow removal team in Canada, and they were using this claw, they called it like a crab machine. It had two arms and a conveyor belt in the middle, and the
Okay. Yep.
two arms, one moves at a time, pushing snow onto the conveyor belt, and it goes up and loads into a tractor trailer, dump truck,
Yep.
and then it brings it to a, almost like a recycling hole
Storage
in the
facility.
ground where they recycle the snow to, the water that it turns to, so it's not
Yep.
contaminated.
Right.
Do we have things like that in this country?
We do. I mean, generally in the Boston area, it depends on how much land is available on the site where somebody's taking care of snow removal. If the land is real tight, which it generally is in Boston and some of the suburbs, particularly the retail areas, especially like around the holidays, they're really looking to optimize all the spaces. Some of the hospitals we take care of, they need every single parking spot. So we'll pull snow out of some of those locations and haul it off site. That machine that you're talking about, I haven't seen that in this area. Generally, it's just heavy equipment and a lot of trucking in the haul snow off site. But it's usually because of space optimization and depending on snowfall. I mean, the last 2 years has been a little light around here, but generally Boston receives around 50 inches of snow, about 10 plowable events, and but then you get into, like we've seen in the news recently in parts of upstate New York, where they're getting feet of snow every winter. So they have to get rid of that stuff somewhere.
Yeah, well, I remember what was the year we had that big snowstorm? It was like 70 feet of snow or some crazy number. And
Right.
what was that?
You sound like that's the average person, right? You don't like why would you remember the year or the statistics behind it? But yeah, that was I have another reason to remember that too. But 2015, the winter of 2015 was incredible. I mean, I've been doing this 28 years now, 28 seasons, and that season we had over 120 inches of snowfall, more than double the average in Boston in a period of only 6 weeks. And it was multiple back-to-back blizzard-sized storms that occurred, way more than the blizzard of 78, which is, a historical event.
Right.
Um, and then my wife, in the middle of it, decided to have our twins. So, so yeah, it was that was a amazing time and something I hope I never relive
Well,
because it was
I saw them in
fun.
the city of Boston. They had these the front end loaders. They were picking up the snow and they were dumping them into these
Yep.
melting machines,
Yeah.
which were right over the storage you know grates.
Catch basins. Yep.
Yeah, so they would all the snow would be melting and turn to water,
Yep.
which I thought that was the first time I ever saw that.
Yeah, it's usually you see it, like Logan's got a lot of those melters. So you'll see them in those kind of scenarios. We do operate them in the winter as well at some of our locations, but um, it's an incredible cost because of the amount of fuel it takes to operate those boilers. But they're pretty neat. They'll optimize some space and time. So
And I did live through the blizzard of 78, and I remember being stuck on the Southeast Expressway,
yep,
going into work and coming home. It took,
yep,
I got into the city and then everything was closing down. So I had to head
right,
home and I lived south of Boston at the time. And so I had to fight everyone trying to get out of the city. And so it took me almost a full day, what I would have put in as a full day of work, because
right.
the traffic was so bad. But after that, everything was buried.
And
You
that
see
was
that
good.
that storm 2015, all the snow we had, they removed it pretty well. After that
Right.
storm, after that blizzard of 78, the lesson was learned that, we have
Yep.
to stay on top of this, you know.
Yeah, I know you hit the nail on the head. So there was, I don't have, I wasn't born yet. So I'm 1980, but I've studied that event and there's a lot of historical data there from Massachusetts DOT and some of the weather forecasters back then, the meteorologists. And you hit the nail on the head. They had used that storm. Basically it was, you know, it was said in writing, but it was recorded rather. Um, but it was known that that will never reoccur. Like that, the best practices for DOT and for the Mass Highway and everyone else had come out of that storm to say that, that we will not let this happen again and let it get ahead of us. So, and then what we see is the private sector sometimes falls suit or vice versa. And then along with the technologies that have been developed in the forecasting.
Well,
It's a lot of
meteorologists back then, you know, they they didn't have all the equipment they have now. They used to
right,
just look out the window and said, "Oh, we're going to have an inch of snow." It looks like, and then,
right,
I mean, that morning, I think they were still predicting there were like going to be only like 3 or 4 inches of snow, and by the
yep,
afternoon, it was like a major nor'easter,
mm,
blizzard. But that's they didn't have that. Well, you didn't have that kind of backing that they had years ago. So a guy that had a tow business, a plowing business, he didn't know how much snow to expect. He was listening to them, and they're saying 2 to 4 inches. He's ready to go out when it stops snowing, and
right,
it never
yep.
stopped.
Nope. Yeah,
Right.
there and yeah, I can't it was I'm sure it was a incredible time for those people working during it and people like yourself too. Your life stopped for a little bit, or changed rather, for
Well, it
several
stopped.
days or weeks.
Everything was shut
Yeah,
down for a week.
yeah, incredible. Incredible. And that's one of the things that you will see it has changed in the private sector too. The forecasting, it's still not perfect. Um, one of the quotes that one of the operations team members here mentioned in the past is they said, we're in the business to thread the needle, and we'll always err on the side of caution. So we'll say, you know, if we get a forecast for a 1 to 3 inch snow event, we're going to plan for a 3 to 6 inch snow event, and we're going to execute on whatever occurs. But what you don't want to do is to, have a forecast for a 1 to 3 and either plan for the 1 inch or a little bit, or start going, well, it may or may not happen, and then get caught, because it's you have to have the people, the processes, and what you're talking about, like have the headspace too to know what to do. Because you just failure is not an option.
Yeah, well,
So
meteorologists kind of have a little more ability to predict pretty close to what's going to happen compared to
I
what
agree.
they did years ago. Uh, I don't know if it's because of the computers or the satellites that we have in place now, but I
Yeah.
mean they seem to be pretty close most of the time.
Yeah, I mean, people are always gonna, comment on it. The forecast is blown, but they are. I believe, I agree. I think more often than not they're close, and they're giving everyone a good heads up. One of the simple things is just, and this I know it's way more complex than this, but just having the data, in the speed of communication we have today. So if I talk to some peers in Jersey, New York, and down the seacoast, just what's happening where you are, and they can tell me, oh, John, we saw 3 inches of snow drop in the last 2 hours. We know about how long it's going to take for that storm to get up to us, and then just whether we're on the warm or the cold side of it, so we can have a little bit of, heads up on what's coming and the surges. Kind of similar to aircraft travel, right? Now, when I fly a decent amount now, and I notice most of my flights don't have turbulence because they're constantly calling ahead, asking where that good airspace is. So
Yeah, I mean, the technology has definitely changed quite a bit that we can handle these things a lot better. Uh, like I said, we didn't have that back in 1978, and we
yeah,
had you probably don't know this name, but there was a meteorologist uh, on WBZ called his name was Don Kent.
yeah, I've heard the name.
Okay, and 90% of the time his forecast was incorrect.
Okay,
But it became a joke because it was so infrequent that he had the right forecast, but very nice guy, we had limited television access too. We only had like three television channels at that time, five
yeah,
television channels. So, there wasn't a lot of news running the weather as well. So now you can get a weather report on 50 different news stations on TV, and you can go to the internet and get thousands of different forecasts, and they'll all be
right.
pretty close.
Yeah, absolutely. They're pretty close, and I think they're sharing I would think they're sharing some data as well, or they're pulling from some of the like sources. So,
So do you have
but
any new technology that you're using to make it a
yeah,
little more efficient?
yeah. So, I can tell you a couple short stories. Um, I was out at the SIMA symposium. This had to have been over 15 years ago. And I was walking through the trade show, and there's a booth, and on the booth was this forecasting company. Um, and I asked them, I said, what do you do? And they said, well, in the private sector, we give you a forecast per zip code. So if you're in Boston, you're going to get a generalization for the state, but we'll give you a forecast specific to each zip code you're in. And so I said, well, and they asked me, they said, how do you dispatch? And at the time, I was the only manager in the company. So I said, well, in the winter, I have an idea when the storm's coming. And at night, every 15 minutes, or 15 to 30 minutes, my alarm will go off. And I'll look out the window and see, there's not a lot of science to it. You look out the window and see if it's snowing, right? And the idea is that around a quarter inch or so is when we would start calling our phone tree to get people on site before there was an inch of snow so they could start plowing. And that's how we did it. I said, oh, geez, we have forecasters in place that'll call you when snow is imminent. So I said, okay. So I hired him, and the first night I remember I was, kind of doing my regular routine. My phone rang, and I wasn't used to it because no one ever called me, for that. So it's probably 2 a.m. and this guy's on the other line, and he goes, "This is so and so from the company," and he goes, "Mr. Crandall, we just want you to know that the atmosphere is saturated, and you're going to start seeing snowfall soon." And I literally remember I got out of my bed, I cracked open the blind of my window, and I saw a little snowflake come down like this. And I was on the phone with the guy going, "Are you in my driveway?" And
So
from that
that,
day on, we've used them.
yeah,
And
so the system works.
it works. And we've coupled that. Again, out at this conference, I found these mobile cameras. They're more, you see more now, but so we worked with the developers of the cameras and got these cameras that have they're completely autonomous. So they have their own solar panel, but they have weather sensors in them for basically we know not only are we getting a photo, but we're a still photo every so many minutes, but we can get the ground temperature and the air temperature, and we have a network throughout the state. So between the forecast for the zip code plus the camera network that has the weather centers in them, we have a team on staff every night that'll be monitoring, and they're looking for the temperature trend to drop below 34 degrees. If they see that, and it's something most people don't know, 6 or 7 a.m. is the coldest point of the night. So we're looking for that temperature to have a downward grade, and we have a pretty good likelihood that we're going to see surfaces freeze if we see below 34 by, say, around 1 a.m., 2 a.m. And if that happens, they have to dispatch, because our goal is to have everything treated with a product, a de-icing agent, before 5 a.m., 5:30, so that when you come in rolling into the parking lot, you don't go across it sideways. And ideally, if we can hit our mark, we want to get the surface to actually never freeze. You don't want to react, you want to be proactive. These are the kind of things with the systems, the science, all that kind of stuff that's a little bit of what is in that book that we talk about, because obviously the most important thing is just someone doesn't get hurt. And the second thing is, did you do everything you could to prevent it if someone does get hurt? And then worst case, someone did get hurt, what kind of protection is there? What kind of insurance, do you need to have? Do you contract it to have? There's so much beyond just like general liability that's into play at this point. So that's some of the tools that we're using. There's more to it, but
So,
it's
John,
probably boring to the listening.
are you saying that you have a network of cameras on all the properties that you work on or you plow for?
So
Yeah.
they're not on all, because our units are thousands of dollars a piece. So that it wouldn't make financial sense for anyone to have them on every site. But what we try to do is have them within a certain amount of radius of mileage of so we'll put them on a major site, and then every X amount, whether it be 2 miles or so, we try to have a camera. So we have a lot of cameras throughout the state of Massachusetts.
Well, that's pretty neat. That's a plus, I guess, for your company, for people to hire you as their snow maintenance company. I
Yeah,
would
and
think.
I think it's the data too, just to help us do our job well. That's what we really want to do is we just, I'm in service, and I recognize that every day. I love, I don't know what it is, but it's just I love being able to do a good job. Every once in a while, you get someone that says, thank you, you did a good job. And it feels good,
Yeah.
I don't know about you. My wife and I have always been in service for our career, and we promised, we both before we had kids, we said we're going to make sure that our kids go into some sort of service, even if they don't end there their whole life, because we want them to always appreciate and respect the people that are in service. It's, and appreciate what they're getting, and for whatever reason, I love it, so it's
Yeah.
fun.
Sense of gratification, accomplishment, things of, yeah,
Yeah.
I can see that. So anything new coming up into the future that you think is going to be incorporated into your business?
Yeah, and I mean, in the industry itself, SIMA is always on top of some, the evolving things that are happening. Um, the weather science is really come a long way, as you said. These cameras and in the way they're being utilized now, like that firm I was talking about, the weather forecasting firm,
Yeah.
we recently partnered with them in the last year or two to offer them rights to ability to access our cameras. So they're utilizing that. They're forecasting now. So that's pretty awesome, at least for Massachusetts. And I'm sure that's going to get duplicated throughout, the nation here, the country. Obviously, it's happening with some of the bigger news sources. They're probably already doing it with the highway cameras as well. Um, so that's neat. And then the way in which people actually plow surfaces now has changed. So where they're using, it's kind of a simple thing, but they're using metal edge plows on these large loaders and heavy equipment that are segmented for contour pavements. So they're able to scrape down really well. Um, and then the big change that we all have to be aware of and just cautious, well, there's a couple things. One is um, just liability. I mean, liability is a massive issue in this industry. Um, I have contractors calling us on a weekly, monthly basis, calling into my office asking how they can get insured. A lot of insurance companies just don't want to take on the contractors anymore, so the market's becoming less and less of viable contractors that can do it because they can't afford the insurance, and that's due to liability. And then the last thing is just from an environmental perspective, the amount of, which is kind of weird because it offsets the liability, is the chlorides going into the ground. That's We see that as an issue in the future. Just as more and more because of the liability risk. The only tool we really have is to scrape those surfaces down with mechanical plowing and then to add de-icer. But the de-icer is causing some issues with waterways. So we see regulation coming down at some point, and it's already there in a lot of places, but I think it's going to be more, it's going to happen. It's going to be more prevalent. So we've taken on, our company has taken on a massive effort to utilize other products in brine and whatnot, but we're concerned about it just having enough tools in the toolbox to make property safe.
So what area do you cover as far as how far will you go out to
Yeah,
plow?
so we cover us down right now in what we call like like the Walpole area would be south and west, uh, out towards Worcester. So the 495 belt, I guess, and the 128 belt up towards southern New Hampshire, and then into Boston. So that's our area. We're not looking to become a national vendor, covering multiple states and whatnot. We're looking to stick into the New England area, this region, and really Boston, the Boston and in Massachusetts area. Um, and this book is obviously available to anyone. One of the things that someone said to me a long time ago is like all ships rise with the tide. we put this out there. I mean, obviously we're going to get some exposure from it, but we put the book out there because I've been talking to property managers and business owners for decades now, and some of them become some of my closest friends. And that survey I told you about, Net Promoter Score, NPS, with the two questions: would you refer us to a peer, 0 to 10, and why did you answer the way you did? We have so much data from that because we figured out this isn't about us. It's about what is it? How can we serve them better? Obviously, that's going to benefit us in the long run, but how do we serve them better? How do we make it so they give us a 10 all the time? And we took all those responses and kind of modeled our business over it. So all these things that came up, and that's what's in the stories in the book are about the insurance, about the good and the bad that's occurred, the different, the different forecasting technologies, the different processes and stuff. And I put it out there hoping that, maybe I'm hoping that it's going to have spike some interest from the real estate owners and the property managers. So
two things. What is the name of the book?
Shameless plug, it is this is the book here. So it's Snow Removal Solutions for Property Managers. It is available on Amazon. It's price point, we put it at $15. It's like $14.99. And all revenues from the book, all profits go to charity. We haven't named the charity yet. It's likely going to be something we've looked at, like what's affected the people in our business. So there's been a lot of people affected in my business from challenges with cancer. So we're looking to push all of it towards that. And we'll announce that at some point, but that's the name, the title.
And what's your website to your company?
Just jcgrounds.com. That's our website. Get onto there.
And if someone's interested in getting your snow removal management, they can go to your website and get that information.
Of course. Yeah. We're every year we grow a little bit, and yeah, even if somebody wants to call and just talk about, whether it be an existing vendor or they're choosing a few vendors and they just want another point of reference or whatnot, not necessarily on the vendor, but on the processes or ideas. I'm going to be in this for another 10 or 20 years. And whatever reason, Rick, it is a sickness. I enjoy it. So I just like talking about it. So if, you don't have to hire us, give us a call, ask us questions. I'm more than happy to help in any way I can.
Okay, great. So, Jon, it's been a pleasure talking with you. Great information. And hopefully people will buy that book and they'll raise lots of money for different charities that you want. We've been talking with Jonathan Crandall from JC Grounds Management, and you're listening to the NYREJ podcast, and I'm Rick Kaplan. Until next time.